Excellent. And just making sure, are you all able to see the screen with the Office of DEI High-Impact Grant Information Session? Excellent. Thank you so much. So let me go ahead and start by doing a little bit of an introduction. My name is Nestor Velos Pasalacqua. My pronouns are he, him, and él. I am the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Manager here at the City of SLO. And we're really excited that the 24-25 DEI High-Impact Grant application is currently opened. There's about 5 weeks left to submit an application, but I wanted to make sure that we are providing enough information to all of you in regards to the different ways in which you can all apply for funding here in the city. So to give you a little bit of background, City Council approved the first round of grants in November 17, 2020, which basically allocated about $110,000 to a total of 8 nonprofit organizations in the county. Most of them are located here in the city of SLO. Then in the 21-23 financial plan, that included $150,000 allocated for the fiscal year 21-22 and 22-23 for a grand total of $300,000 for the DEI High-Impact Grant. In 21-22, there was no cycle for the grant, and so those $150,000 were moved to the following year, the 22-23. And that's why you see that in fiscal year 22-23, a total of $300,000 were allocated to 21 nonprofit organizations. And fiscal year 23-25, the new financial plan also included sustainable funding. That means that every single year, the city is approving $150,000 on a yearly basis to continue the DEI High-Impact Grant in the community. So the last year in 23-24, a total of $150,000 again were allocated to a total of 8 different nonprofit organizations in the community. What is the purpose of the DEI High-Impact Grant? As designed and provided by feedback by the DEI Task Force and approved by City Council, is the purpose of the program is to enhance the sense of belonging for all peoples and communities in the city of San Luis Obispo. We also know very well that some of the work that we do has a intentional impact community and countywide. So we know very well that the work that we're doing will actually pass the boundaries of the city as well. The other purpose is to uplift and support local projects, programs, and initiatives that contribute to creating a community that is welcoming, inclusive, equitable, and safe. We want to make sure that we continue to strive for those major values and to ensure that every community member actually truly sees reflected in the community that they live in and they play or work or are engaged in. Something that is important to note about the DEI High-Impact Grant is that we know very well that the scope of inclusion and equity is very broad and complex by nature. And really the grant is intended to support organizations and projects that really can show understanding of the root causes of what is it that happens systemic-wide, as well as the intractable problems that sometimes we think that adding money or having money can try and fix it, but in reality, we're just addressing a symptom. What we really want to do is get to the cause issue, understanding how that actually pays attention to the systemic inequities that exist in the city of SLO, in a way, looking at a SLO-centric perspective of, when we look at, for example, homelessness, what is that experience locally and what is it that we can do internally and with partnerships and with some funding to be able to address that systemic issue that exists in our community. And then something that we're really interested is about the learning component of these grants, right? We really want to understand what success looks like, how one of those programs or projects or applications are really contributing to making some type of systemic change in our community. That being said, I do want to stress a piece about equity and inclusion being very broad terms and complex terms, right? Because it does really require a lot of thinking and creativity and finding ways in which we are trying to navigate and create meaningful solutions or mitigations that can really address those major issues that exist in our community. So that being said, the funding area for the grant is advancing and implementing DEI through innovative practices that really seek to narrow equity gaps and address, again, the intractable piece, the systemic issues, or those structural issues that you can always think about them from the slow-centric perspective, right? Because we are not going to be able to solve the major systemic issues in our state or in our country with the small dollar amounts that we are able to provide to community organizations. But it's looking at that experience that is actually very tangible here in SLO. Some of the illustrative examples that exist, for example, would be poverty and unemployment impacting access to education, food and shelter, diversity in government and governing institutions or governing bodies, racial and socioeconomic disparities in criminal justice systems, environmental justice and equitable access to sustainable resources, and diverse individual civic engagement related to voting representation and election education. Like when you think about those larger themes, you're able to identify some of those systemic issues that exist and how you can apply those solutions or alternatives to finding ways in which you're able to embrace a larger and create access to more individuals. The next piece is the funding requirements. So all applicants will need to submit a one-page DEI statement. And in the DEI statement, what we're really looking forward to understand and to really better grasp the organization's stance is to how they're going to be applying DEI on their day-to-day operations, who they are, their own understanding of the concept of DEI. The second item that we're looking in that DEI statement is the language. What kind of affirming language are you using that creates access and a sense of belonging, not only for your employees, but also for the communities that you serve? And the last piece is how you're, through the projects that you already have in place as an organization in the community, how you're advancing social justice, DEI, in the city of San Luis Obispo, in the community, right? That being the first item that needs to be provided, which is the one-page DI statement. The second item would be a one-page detailed budget of the project or the program or the initiative that you're moving forward. The third item would be the organizational chart. And the fourth item will be some kind of documentation that shows and that certifies that your organization is federal tax exempt. We need to be able to have that information on file. That way it is in compliance with the type of funding that we are able to provide to organizations in the community. At this moment, I would like to just simply stop. And I know I've been talking a lot already, but I want to make sure that if you do have a question, you can go ahead and ask it right now. Or we have about maybe a few more slides that I need to go through and then be able to take any of the questions that you may have. But I want to be able to pause at this moment and ask if you have a question. You're more than welcome to raise your hand and I can answer your question. No, okay. So the funding criteria. Individuals and organizations that want to apply for funding would have to be applicants that are registered 501c3 nonprofit organizations. And I highlighted that in its bold and underlined because there are over 20 different types of nonprofit organizations under the IRS. And many of them, unfortunately, cannot solicit or apply for state funding due to the nature of the type of organizations. Unfortunately, for example, 501c4 organizations are in that boundary line in which they could potentially acquire, because of the nature of those organizations, they are involved in political causes, and that's the reason that there are particular laws governing city governments and municipalities in which we are not able to actually provide funding because otherwise we'll be in violation. So we will need to make sure that those that are applying that are nonprofit organizations are 501c3 organizations. Government entities can apply for funding as well. Education entities like a poly, Cuesta College, or even faith-based organizations can apply for funding as well. Something that is critical is that the funding activities must happen within the city of SLO, but that doesn't necessarily mean that some of the events or some of the impact of the project that's being done will ultimately move farther away from the boundaries of the city. We know very well that there will be an impact community-wide or even county-wide. The funding activities must happen within the city of SLO, but we also understand as well that depending on the needs of the project, there are some leniency, and then obviously the Human Relations Commission, which is the advisory body that will review all the applications, will determine as well the impact of those projects and understanding really well where they will take place within the city or even outside the city. How are we making sure that the funds that are being used will primarily impact the city and the community? As I mentioned earlier, all the applications must show some kind of measurable impact and success. We know very well that, again, equity and inclusion and diversity, sometimes those topics are very complex and hard to basically pinpoint what a potential solution would look like. That's why we also seek for new and creative ways in which different approaches can be brought into this field. We're looking for anything and possibly many different creative ways in which different organizations can partner up themselves, or even finding ways in which what worked in another industry or in another field can be actually be replicated in city government or in the way that a partnership is being established between a nonprofit and city. So there are different ways, and that's why the Office of DEI wanted to be able to make sure to provide some technical assistance hours in the work that you are going to be doing or that you're thinking about the potential projects moving ahead. And like I was saying before, the last item is we really look forward to different partnerships and collaborations between different nonprofits. I can tell you from the last cycle, the lead organization, which was a 501c3 nonprofit organization, partnered up with other nonprofits, with 3 other nonprofits. And their project, which you can get up to $40,000 when you partner up with 1 or 2 or more organizations, really had a major impact in the decision making for the HRC when they were reviewing the applications. And it was simply because they were able to leverage the different resources within the different organizations and the impact that they could have within their own different communities that they're serving. And so it was easily identifiable that finding those partnerships really can help have a major impact in the entire community. And again, you'll be able to request a higher dollar amount if you're able to establish a partnership with different groups. The next slide is going to be about some couple of examples. I do want to highlight something that's very important about DEI. While everyone's proposals can really focus on a specific underserved, underrepresented, or even marginalized community, all the projects, all the applications, all the services, all the concepts that are being done within the proposal must provide access to the entire community. And also it must allow for participation from other groups as well, right? While, for example, and I'll give you a clear example of this. One of the previous grantees had received funding to really focusing on the needs of the mixed status and the immigrant community in SLO County and in the city of San Luis Obispo. So what they really wanted to do is to be able to provide ways in which they would be able to navigate social service systems in a way that that is culturally more appropriate to their experience. So what did they do? They wanted to be able to create language items and materials, but also visual items that can help them outreach and get to those community groups easier. So they created videos. During the process of their proposal, because we offer technical assistance, we were able to identify that while they were really focusing on one population, they were also looking into other potential gaps that exist, because there are many other community members in our community that are experiencing potential, homelessness, poverty, access to housing, issues related to food. And what we really needed to identify is how do we also bridge that gap utilizing the same model that you're doing. So those videos that were created ultimately ended up being in Spanish, in English, and in the local indigenous language in Mexico called Mixteco, which is the largest indigenous group in our community right now. So then we know that, for example, again, those services are going to be provided to the entire community, knowing very well that they're going to be available in English and Spanish and Mixteco, and everyone else within those language communities will be able to access that information. And if any other community member is experiencing issues and have a hard time navigating those elements, those videos do really truly serve as a way to actually navigate the system and gain access to the information. So that's a clear example of how we're able to identify that, making sure that every single project, every single application, program that is put out there really will impact the entire community at large, making sure that everyone will have access and it is open to the entire public. Another example, for example, would be the inclusive leadership development for businesses and nonprofit organizations. How are we looking into the future, right? So we can talk about like the different programs and projects that we can build and that we can provide funding to, but how do we make sure that we continue to build on that foundation? And so there are different programs out there right now through Diversity Coalition, which is one of the previous grantees as well, and really developing leadership programs for different individuals from different backgrounds, and then helping them be placed at governing boards, at advisory bodies. And it's their work not only impacts here the city of SLO, but because they are also countywide, they're able to impact other communities abroad, outside of the boundary of the city as well. So we know very well that the impact of the work that they're doing with the city funding will not only have a major result here in the city, but also countywide. Then additional information that is very important to know, and something about the restrictions about the grant. A single applicant can request a minimum of $5,000 and a maximum of up to $20,000. Partner applications, partnerships, there is no really minimum on that. Technically, we hope that you're going to be asking a lot of money, up to $40,000, knowing very well, what the challenges are ahead and what is it that you're proposing in your application. A maximum of one grant award per organization or per partnership or in partner applications. That's a requirement. Funding may be used for new or existing projects, programs, or initiatives that have really proven that are successful in the community, that continue to have a major impact. And then something that we look into, but it's not necessarily a major piece in the decision-making process under the Human Relations Commission, is how you are also leveraging existing resources or funding to be able to continue to do the work that you're planning on doing. That basically looks into sustainability of the project, right? So if we give you the funding and it's only for 1 year, what are the impacts beyond that 1 year? Are you able to continue to do some of that work? Is it something that is going to be through the partnership that you establish that will continue to, have an impact in the community? So those are little things to consider when you're working on the application. And something else to know is that our goal is to make sure to start these programs in January 1st, 2025. I'll be providing a timeline in the next couple of slides, so you have a better understanding of where we are and where we're headed in the next couple of months. And then once you're being awarded the funding, technically, you'll also be signing a contract with the city. And so once that comes into place, we'll be sending that information to any of the applicants that are being awarded funding. And it's very important for all of you, and I'll make a general statement right now, is to always read the contract in detail to make sure, because what I'll let you know right now is that while there is an application may be requesting $20,000, and that includes like 2 different types of programs. HRC, when they do the review of the applications, they may determine that they really like the grant, they really like the application, but they also want to make sure that they're only going to provide funding to one of the different programs within the application that you provided. So that means that there is going to be a little bit of a language change in the contract language, in which it will be very specific in there that tells you that instead of doing the 2 different types of programs within the application that you provided, the funding will only and should only go to one program that HRC is recommending for funding. So it's very specific to. It's very important to be very to pay attention to those little things in the contract, but also if you end up providing a detailed budget that tells HRC how the funding will be allocated and how each one of the dollars will be spent, they will have better understanding on how to provide better direction to each one of the different grantees if any of them were to get partial funding. If it happens that they all get the appropriate dollar amount, that's great, but I can tell you right now, it hasn't happened in which there are no partial funding ever allocated. There's usually a few applicants that receive partial funding every single year that the DEI High-Impact Grant has been created. Something very important about funding restrictions. Funds cannot be used for advancing, advocating, promoting, or highlighting political causes, entities, ballot measure, or candidates, as you already know. We talked about that before. Similarly, funds cannot be used for advancing, advocating, promoting, or highlighting religious causes, separation of church and state, in entities, individuals, or activities. And lastly, the funds cannot be used for personal profit or personal gain, right? So we need to make sure that everything is being targeted to the community, the services, the initiatives, the process, the projects, all of that is going to be impacting the community and everyone that has access, and it's open to all. And as I mentioned earlier, there are some funding decisions. So the HRC, the Human Relations Commission, is the advisory body that oversees these grants. And they basically exercise discretion on their in developing their funding recommendations. Some of the things that I mentioned to you earlier about what they look into is really something that they pay attention, right? They want to make sure that the applications are completed, that you're able to provide some detailed budget, that your DI statement really aligns with your organization. And so they want to make, and they also look into the proposal, the details of the proposal, how impactful it's going to be into the community, how the funds are being used, the number of potential people being served, and anything that is innovative and creative. That's something that they really pay attention to as well, because they really want to see what else have we not tried in our community, and how can we really invest in those projects to make sure that there is going to be an impact. And the funding recommendations that the HRC puts together will go before council for approval in the month of November. And then again, proposals will be evaluated for meeting the funding areas, the funding criteria, as well as the potential success, the application as a whole, and how it will kind of change, provide systemic change in the community. Here's the timeline. So as I mentioned, the application opened July 22nd. Today, August, well, I apologize. I should say July 29th is the informational session. July 31st to August 1st, we're going to be offering the technical assistance hours. If you have not signed up, I still have the slots available, so I'm more than happy. And if any of those times don't work for you, I'm also more than happy to meet with you outside of those hours and be able to assist you in the development of your application as well. August 30th, that's when the application closes at 5 p.m., which is a Friday. In October 2nd, that's when the Human Relations Commission hosts a public hearing. And in the public hearing, you'll see a notice and be able to access the meeting. You're more than welcome to attend that meeting because it is a public hearing for everyone to attend. And that's when the subcommittee that review all of the grant applications and provided their preliminary recommendations will meet with the entire 7 advisory body members. And they will all discuss the funding recommendations provided by the subcommittee. and then they will all make the final decision that night. And it is during that time that community groups that completed their application and submitted an application are more than welcome to attend and provide feedback and recommendation, or, well, provide a comment directly to HRC to let them know about the project in itself. And then the month of November, that's when we are hoping to present the funding recommendations to City Council. By December 2024, we're hoping to start routing the contracts directly to each one of the grant awardees. And in January 2025, that's when we will be dispersing the funds. And by mid-July 2025, actually July 20th, that's when the mid-year reports will be due. And January 2026, that's when the year-end reports are due. I apologize for that mistake. So technically, 6 months after, that's a mid-year report, and then 6 months after the mid-year report, that's when the final report is due. Some tips I want to be able to provide to you right now about the application. So the application must be completed in one sitting. Like, you cannot go back to the website and try to actually save your progress. My recommendation at this point is for you to access the application. You can access the application right now and see all the questions before you need to complete the application. You're able to, copy or paste the questions in a Word document and be able to answer them separately. And then when you're ready, you can go ahead and move everything to the actual online system that we have. Unfortunately, we are not set at this point to be able to save your progress when you complete the application or when you are in the process of completing your application. So I just wanted to mention that out. My advice again is to copy some of those questions. Otherwise, you're more than welcome to email me if you're having a hard time. And then I can try to figure out a solution, making sure that everyone has equitable access to the application. Even if you were to need it to be sent to you electronically, I can send it to you electronically, but ultimately it has to be completed online and submitted online, because there's a date and time timestamped there that we needed also to record when those applications are being submitted. The other piece I mentioned earlier is that if your proposal contains various sub-projects, it is best to provide a separate budget for each sub-project. Again, it's because HRC may decide to fund some sub-projects, but not the entire proposal. So if they, if they really like 5 of the 7 different points that you've made in your proposal and they want to fund 5 of them, but not 7, then they need to know specifically where those, what the cost will be of those 5 different points. So that's very important. I would say also, please pay attention to the required minimum dollar amount and the other small details of the application. In the last couple of years, there were a few applications that were unfortunately not moving forward because they missed that information, and that's very unfortunate. So we're making sure that everyone knows that we do have a required minimum dollar amount, and sometimes some applicants don't put that in. And then, so technically that's already an incomplete application that ultimately does not move forward for review. And as I mentioned earlier as well, partnerships and collaborative applications are really highly encouraged. That's a way to really try to get the higher dollar amount, and also be able to use different resources within the different partner agencies, but also being able to have a higher impact with the potential higher dollar amount that can be provided to the participants. And the other tips as well is I would say make sure to access the DEI High-Impact Grant website for additional information. We've tried to be really make sure that there is very comprehensive information in there, but as well, we are also learning what are some of those small things and issues. Not a lot of different cities provide grants, and then so our city is one of those. And then we're making sure that information listed on the website is the most up-to-date and is what we're currently using when it comes to providing information to the community, and also what the HRC will be using when they start reviewing the applications. And the last point is there will be a question in the application about metrics and outcome measures. All applicants are required to provide 4 different outcome measures that you know that you will be able to gather data. Additionally to that, there is a required performance outcomes measure document and template on the website that is required for all applicants once you become a grantee. And this is something that we've been implementing for the last 2 years or year and a half to make sure that we're able to compare on a year-to-year basis success. We're able to look at data, either if it is anecdotal data, as well as qualitative or even quantitative data that can help us better understand the impact of the DEI High-Impact Grant throughout the now 4 years of implementation. So we're trying to gather more additional data, and I'm going to add a little bit of a caveat in regards to the grant metrics and performance outcomes template is that this is only applicable to those organizations and applications and proposals that are doing that particular type of work, right? So for example, if your services, if your application or concept is going to be providing some type of engagement in the community, you will be counting the number of individuals that are being served through your services, right? So what we would want to know is the number of people that you serve, right? And then so that would be one item already listed there. And then what we did is kind of expand that language to make sure that any one of the applicants that is getting funding, if they are providing services, whether it is through a program, through an application, through instructions, through trainings, through a product, through providing information, whether it is orally, printed, in person, virtually, any material that is being created as part of the project proposal, or any type of referrals that you're doing, all of those pieces will count as the number of individuals that are being served. We just need to have a number so we can tell a better story internally of the impact that you're doing out in the community, and also to city council, right? So they can see that the dollars that are being used from the city are ultimately impacting the community as a whole. And that's basically the end. So the next slide is for me to be able to answer any questions you may have. You're more than welcome to add your questions on the chat, or you're more than welcome to raise your hand and I will call on you and answer your question. You can unmute as well if you want.
Do you have a time for the October 2nd HRC public hearing?
The time would be, give me a moment.
I think it's 5 o'clock. Is that right?
It is always at 5 o'clock, but it is in October. So give me a second. I can give you the specific date.
Thanks so much. That's great.
Yep. That would be October 2nd.
Great. October 2nd at 5 o'clock. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Nestor, can I ask a question about the measurement outcomes?
Yeah.
You had mentioned that the grant application will require 4 outcomes. You also said to structure your programs independently. So if the HRC decides to only partially fund your application, it's easy for them to separate it. How does that play into the outcomes? Are you supposed to do 4 outcomes per program, or is it 4 outcomes for the entire application?
It would be the 4 outcomes for the entire application. If one of the outcomes is related to one specific services that is not going to be funded, then that would be fine for us to be able to say, no, this application will only have 3 different outcomes, not 4, due to the partial funding element that HRC has decided to move forward. Yeah.
Thank you.
And yes, and then we are actually very considerate of that, right? Because if we are providing funding, only partial funding to those organizations, we also need to be considerate to the fact that if they are going to be impacted by the dollar amounts, we are not going to be hold them accountable for in their application, they say 1,000 people that are going to be served, but that's as long as they get the total dollar amount. But we are going to be only providing partial funding. Then we know very well that's going to be decreased, and we want to make sure that they know very well that we're not going to try to hold you accountable for up to that total number of clients served, knowing very well that you did not receive the total funding amount. So we know that there will be an impact. That's what we want. But we also know that it won't be as impactful due to the decrease on the dollar provided to them. Any other questions? And I'm more than happy to stay here until like 1:50 to be able to answer more questions if that's it. But if there are no more any other questions that I could answer, like, you're all free to go. I just want to say thank you so much. The application is currently open. As I mentioned earlier, I am available to provide technical assistance to go over with you any of the questions that you may have regarding the application. If you're finding a little bit of issues with it, or even trying to formulate some part of the proposal that you're planning, it's really good sometimes to just talk it through with someone who is outside of your organization. I'm more than happy to provide that feedback. And again, like I said, I have some available spots this Wednesday and Thursday. If you're interested, I'm more than happy to also send you my give me a second here. Hopefully you all have my email, so making sure that if you do have my email, make sure to email me if you have any questions. But and I'm more than happy to schedule another time in the next couple of weeks for you to be able to complete your application. We really want to see a lot of different applications. HRC enjoys reading them, and there is definitely impact in the community, and we really appreciate everyone that is here today and interested in applying for funding. But I'll be here for the next 12 minutes. If anyone needs to stay and talk to me a little bit more. Otherwise, basically this will be the presentation. And again, just feel free to email me, and we can schedule a time to go over your proposal or application. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Nestor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Nestor.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nestor.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nestor, I have a quick question. Can you hear me?
Yes, Nikki.
Hi. I'm associated with Slow Village, which, our population that we serve are older adults who, some of whom are disabled, but all of those adults are living at home, mostly alone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I haven't worked with this particular grant in the past, so I just wanted to explore what you said about that there needed to be that there needed to be community access to the project. Now, obviously, because our services are limited to people basically over 55, is that acceptable? As long as we provide it to anybody who in that category who is needs the services. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense.
Okay.
Yes, no, it does make sense. I can tell you right now, it is so technically your project would be to provide services to individuals who are older adults over the age of 45, right?
Of 55, yeah.
Or 55, excuse me. And then depending on what the project looks like, because you can look at it this way. You are providing services for individuals who are over the age of 55 to any individual over the age of 55. So that means you are still creating an access point for diversity, right? Any individual.
Correct.
Then on the other side of this is who are the individuals providing this type of services?
Volunteers.
Volunteers. Okay, so those volunteers that you contact, that you engage with, you can build a two-pronged kind of project piece, right? In looking at how do you diversify your volunteer list and making sure that they have a different background or different perspectives in life that can help and enrich that community that is at home. Right?
Okay,
And then
Yeah.
still maintaining the service provision that you're looking into, making sure that are individuals over the age of 55, but it's still enriching as well the diversity and the makeup of your volunteer group.
correct.
And then
Okay.
you have an opportunity to mix and match and be able to actually create a different cohesion kind of approach in which you're looking at how can I help different community members from different backgrounds that are volunteers, but that also want to be out there enjoying their time and engaging with individuals over the age of 55. So you have
Got
that
it.
opportunity to mix and match that what diversity looks like, right? So I think that would be completely appropriate and for the grant. I think you just need to make it very clear that you're looking to diversify the way that you are creating your volunteer list that have a higher impact in the community for the community of individuals age 55 and above. And I think that can really help make that a higher connection.
Okay, that's very helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got it. And no doubt I'll be calling you or texting you or whatever later as we work through the application. But this is a good start. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye.
Presentation. I just had a really quick question on if the city ever gives trainings or different certifications to nonprofits for like DEI trainings for employers.
Thank you so very much for that question. So I can tell you just recently, for the last 8 months, last year, since May last year, I started working on developing the DEI strategic plan, which was approved by City Council in February this year. And there is an item in there for us to start developing a learning module or a community learning engagement with businesses through the Chamber of Commerce and with Leadership Slow, and in collaboration with a nonprofit as well. So it is in the works. The discussion is there. It is a tactic in the strategic plan that we will be getting our feet wet in the next couple of months. But it is something that that we are intending to do in the future as well. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Who's next?
I was just listening, so
No?
to learn more.
Yeah. Fernando, you have a question for me?
Yes, I have a question. Can you share your contact information in case we need to get
Oh, yeah.
some information from you? I don't know if I have that info.
Of course. Let me. Go ahead and stop the share there for a moment. Okay. I'm going to put it right here. Actually, give me 1 second.
Sure.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. I have it on the screen. Are you able to see it now? It's just, I don't have the chat function on this account, so I'm not able to add it there, but I put it on the screen right now.
No. There it is. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. That's all we need.
Thank you, Fernando. Yeah, and please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I'll be more than happy to help.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then Andrea, Or Rebecca, I don't know if you were to have any questions. I'm more than happy to answer any of them.
Nestor, I just want to say thank you. No, I don't have any questions. I was gonna just stick around for this Spanish session if that's okay, or do you want me to log back out and log back in?
There are two different links.
Okay,
So they're not going to be, I believe there are two different links. So just in
Okay.
case, I would, yeah, you can get out and then get back in right at 2, and then I'll do the Spanish. Right.
okay,
You listen
great.
everything again, but in Spanish.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And Rebecca, do you have any other questions maybe for me or Tina?
No, I just wanted to say, thank you again,
Of
for your
course.
wonderful presentation.
Um,
Thank you.
and it makes sense. You're clear on where we are, what's the expectations for the applications.
Yes, and I appreciate that you're graciously extending the private appointments beyond
yeah.
just this week. Because I'd like to talk to our board and stuff too, so I might want to pursue that.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Please email me and then we'll schedule something. I'm more than happy to assist.
Thank you. And thank
You're
you
welcome.
again. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye. And Rebecca, just checking in one more time. I'm going to be here until 1:50. And then if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any of them. But yeah, thank you everyone so much for being here. And yeah, we'll wait a little 3 more minutes and then we'll end this presentation.